get the hell out of Dodge, but it's difficult. So, but before we get ahead of ourselves, like, okay, what is toxic, right? Like, what is it?
So people get really uncomfortable with the conversation of some people are good and some people are bad. That is sketchy for so many reasons, right? So it's a very helpful reframe to think some people are good for me to be around and some people aren't good for me to be around. They are
Yeah.
bad for me to be around. They bring out the worst version of me, or they degrade me, or they're always playing the victim and make me feel uncomfortable, or they're always belittling me. But I think that's the first helpful step, because when we get into, Sarah, are you saying some people are good and some people are bad? I am not judge and jury of the whole world,
Right.
right? None of us are. But I also need to be responsible and discerning in my own life to say, when I'm around this person, I feel really good. I feel like an expanded version of myself. I feel brave. I feel strong. I feel powerful. And when I'm around a different person, I feel confused. I feel like I never get anything right. I feel like I'm always having to do the work of the relationship. I feel like they're always mad at me. I feel like they insert little cuts to always bring me down.
Yeah.
And it's really about your experience rather than getting into, the most popular label is narcissist, which people
Yeah.
say, oh, we're kind of obsessed with the word narcissist right now. And I don't think, if you're in the community of people who are talking about narcissism, you can say, oh, I think I dated a narcissist, and they will have forgiveness to that. If you say it to the general public, they are not forgiving to that. They think you're the victim or you're diagnosing people. I do not advise people saying, oh, he was a narcissist or she was a narcissist, because it doesn't get you what you're looking for, which is understanding.
Right. You're labeling, right? You're just slapping a label on it, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that doesn't help getting
No.
understanding.
Bill Eddy, in his book, The 5 Types of People Who Will Ruin Your Life, he uses the term high conflict personality, which
Okay.
I highly recommend using. You have someone in your life, especially a work situation, they were a high conflict individual.
Yeah.
And then give 3 examples, if at all possible, examples that have nothing to do with you. Because if you say, my ex was a high conflict personality, he did this to me, and this to me, there's a different impression than my ex is a high conflict personality. He got in a fight with this person, he was always screaming at this person, and he had work issues with this person.
Yeah.
Okay, totally different impression.
Yes. Wow. That's like mind blowing.
And
just
very helpful for dating.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you look at like that dating? If someone's out there dating and they're like, gosh, am I in a toxic relationship?
Well, I want to answer the question first. If you have been in a toxic relationship, and people all the time, like, what do I say about this person? Why do I say I got a divorce? Why do I say we broke up? And if you say, gosh, my ex was a narcissist, he did this to me, and this to me, guys are going to be like, or just don't do
Right.
that.
Right.
Just
Right.
don't do that. It's not the impression you're wanting to give off. But if you say, well, my ex was a high conflict personality,
Yeah.
and at first I didn't see it, but I've grown a lot since then. And I've done the work to be a better version of myself, to make sure I never put up with a situation like that again.
Right.
And here are 3, and if they ask, here are 3 examples of toxic behavior that have nothing to do with you. You come across as very strong
Yeah.
rather than victim-y.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you weren't a victim, because I
Right.
have been a victim, right? That's a separate conversation. It's about your dating brand. It's about the impression you're trying to give off. And it's also trying to keep yourself safe, because if you've been in a toxic relationship and that's a toxic person, they may go, oh, good, I can take advantage of you too.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you become prey.
Yeah.
I feel like when you get stuck in that toxic cycle of things, especially when you're a people pleaser, especially if you are like overly nice and, want everyone to be happy and you want to be like good or whatever, yeah. I feel like you sometimes can attract negativity and toxic people, whether you ask for them or they seek you out. It's just like they find you. You're like a magnet for it. And I figured that out a little while ago, and I was very careful about I was choosier, but like every once in a while, there's always a breakthrough, right? There's always a breakthrough person that gets in there and fuck shit up for you. Sorry. But I mean, seriously. And you're like, God damn it. I thought I was doing so good.
Stop talking about me.
But
well, so going back to Bill Eddy again, because with all these different experts, people kind of say, well, how many toxic people are there? So
how many?
Statistics are, some people say 1 in 10, and some people say 1 in 5 have a personality disorder.
Okay.
So really the majority of people are good, but that 10% or 20% of our 25% of our population, no, 20% of our population is very noisy. They stir up a lot of stuff, right? They're causing a lot of drama. They're having a lot of relationships. They're having a lot of fights. They leave a big imprint in our world. So it's not that everyone's toxic, but those people take up a lot of space. So it seems like they get a lot of forefront, and they certainly get a lot of in our media, in our shows now. We did not grow up. I grew up watching like Saved by the Bell, like
right.
This type of stuff, not like stuff on serial killers and sociopaths and psychopaths. And there's some lovely things about that because we are learning to keep ourselves safe. But there's also an entire generation who are being taught how to think like a sociopath.
Right.
So should I stop watching that stuff?
Probably.
Maybe not let your children watch it, but it's quite a conversation about, everyone agrees that personality disorders are on the rise. So it's a lot better to be dating in your 50s than it is in your 40s. And it's better to be dating in your 30s than your 20s. And God help us all for the children my age.
Right.
It's not about to get better statistically.
No, there's no way. I would not want to be out in the dating world at all. Like for sure, definitely not. I mean, it was hard enough to date back when I was dating people, and I've been married for a while now. So it's like on my worst days, I'm really pissed off at my husband. I'm like, well, it could be worse. I could be out there dating a psychopath. But I mean, yeah, I've had a few.
I think I have to run background checks on everybody. Can I have your fingerprints, please?
Right. Maybe.
DNA, maybe.
I had to tell
and that can help sometimes. And then, not other time. There's a reason we have white collar crime and they get away with it for so long. It's like, oh gosh, they have this fabulous job and this fabulous life and no criminal record, but they have a string of image management and blame shifting. Okay.
What's that?
They pull the flip. Like you say, I'm sad that you talk to me that way. And I pull the flip on you and say, well, I wouldn't have had to talk to you that way if you had done what you said you were going to.
Okay.
Is that another term, or is that another way to say gaslighting? Or is gaslighting another way to say that rather?
Yes. Gaslighting, there's a whole spectrum of that for sure, and they can get into really extreme crazy making.
Right.
And it's easier when you kind of think about the flip, it's easy to see in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. And gaslighting is hard to see in the moment, period. Even if you're very, very experienced at it, because it's just like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Right. That's what I love about you. That's what I love about you, because you literally take something and you just kind of like put it in like these little chunks of ways to like understand and digest it and process it. Because like, when someone says gaslighting, I'm like, what does that mean? Or what's a narcissist, or what's a personality disorder? And so if somebody's out there and they're like, God, I'm at work and there's like this guy and he's kind of a jerk, like, I'm not really sure like how to handle this. Is he toxic? I don't know. Is he not toxic? Like, how would you guide somebody, or like maybe give them a couple tips, or, like, let's start with the workplace. What would you say to somebody? Yeah.
So in a workplace, in any circumstance, if you're trying to figure out someone is toxic, kind of rate yourself and how you feel after experiencing them. Like if you're in a work meeting and every time you're in a work meeting with this person, you feel like you're a 3 out of 10 happy, like you're just kind of miserable, you're grumpy, you're moody, you feel like a small crumpled up version of yourself rather than an expanded, empowered version of yourself. That's really good data. And that's enough data.
Okay.
When we try to start getting into why is this person toxic, you have already lost the battle.
Okay.
You've already lost the battle, because by the time you collect all the data about why they're toxic, what good does it do you?
Right.
If something happened to them when they were 13 or whatever, and there's a pattern. Now, I do want to point out there's a pattern. We're not talking about people who have bad days every once in a while.
Oh yeah,
We're not
I've
talking
had a
about,
few.
yeah, of course. And so have I. When I was finishing up my book and in the editing process, I was probably a nightmare to be around. I was recording. I actually sent my husband to a different state. I was recording at 2 or 3 a.m., like doing my audio recordings. I was working with someone in Eastern Europe in the recording. Yeah, I'm sure I was a nightmare to be around. If that was the only version you got of me, that would not be, your best person, right? So we're talking about a extended pattern of behavior, not a season of behavior.
Right. I like that.
It's very, very important.
Okay. That's awesome. That's like a really easy way to like look at something. Cause like you've been around people where you're like, I don't vibe with them.
Yeah.
Or like, someone's in a bad mood, or they're like, I don't know, they have a bitch ass face, like they're just kind of being bitchy, and
Mhm.
like, what's wrong with them? But like you said, that could be just like a one and done moment. But if it's happening like every single time you're around that person, that makes sense. It's a pattern.
Yeah, it's just good data to collect.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to say something a little controversial.
Okay.
Okay. So
We
don't be
like
mad at
it.
me.
No.
Man. A lot of times after someone realizes someone maybe is a toxic personality, their first impression is going to be to stand up for themselves.
Okay.
Okay. Like, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to this. Well, if a toxic person is good at fighting and then you try to get better at fighting, then both of you are fighting. The impression is going to be that both people are toxic.
Yes. Yes.
But I see it all the time. People are like, I'm not going to take that anymore. I'm not going to let them talk to me that way anymore. I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to have boundaries. I'm going to this, I'm going to that. And they fight to fight,
Yeah.
rather than fighting to win.
Yeah. That's pretty powerful. That's pretty
It's
powerful.
a huge mistake I see people make. And I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. I see women thinking about getting a divorce, and they're going into the divorce process, but they haven't told their husband they want a divorce, and they completely changed their personalities. And they're standing up to him now. And they're saying, I'm not taking this anymore. I'm not letting you talk to me that way. I'm not this. What's the husband doing? Hiding money. Because he knows she's about to bolt. Did she win? No, she did not win.
Right.
Did she stand up for herself and not put up with it? No, she got another lashing. She got another lashing. And in a work situation, they're going to pull the flip and play the victim and blame shift and make it your fault and turn you into HR.
Right.
It's a
Totally.
terrible strategy. My dad, this is the weirdest thing. He had sang this song when I was little. I'm surprised it's not come up more in therapy, but he sang a song called Mama Grab the Hammer. There's a fly on baby's head.
Oh,
And it was a joke. Like, it was like I don't know what happened with this. It's obviously, but it's a great illustration of we don't always need the hammer.
yeah.
There's a fly on the baby's head and you're bringing in the hammer. It's not best for baby, obviously.
Obviously.
If there's a toxic person and you want to gain your sense of self back and protect yourself, it's not always coming in swinging the hammer. It's hardly ever coming in swinging the hammer, because toxic people are good at swinging back,
Right.
or dodging the hammer and then saying, look, they're crazy. They're trying to throw a hammer at me.
Yeah. Yeah. They play the victim, and then they sort of like flip it and make you out to be like the crazy person.
And the person
So,
that's not usually toxic probably feels guilty about it, but the person that's toxic doesn't, because it's just second nature. It's like, this is who I am. It's what I do.
exactly. So where do you go from there then? Like, whether it's a work situation or a romantic situation or a family situation, parent situation, like what do you do? Like, you hear low contact, no contact, ignore, you divorce, like, take yourself out of the situation. But like, that's not always really gonna be able to happen, right? Like, sometimes you can't do that. So how do you talk to your clients, or what do you advise people? Yeah.
So is it the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Is that
Yeah,
what
it's
it is? Everybody's 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon.
yes.
So we need to find ways to be 6 degrees away from toxic people.
Right.
If they sit on one end of the work table meeting, you try to sit on the other end. You try not to meet with them alone. You try to meet with them in a hallway back when we used to work in offices, meet with them in a hallway versus their office.
Okay.
If you need to, run something by them, you have that protection of other people. Maybe you just drop it off at the water cooler. I don't think we have water coolers anymore, but that sense of like, here, let me just drop this off, rather than let me come into your office and we schedule a meeting and shut the door.
Right.
Where I'm isolated. There's only 1 degree of separation.
Yeah.
We want to keep as many degrees of separation, have more meetings that involve other people. So there's other eyewitnesses.
Yeah. Right.
To
And
this
maybe
stuff.
keep track too. Like
Sure.
I'm thinking like nowadays that you can't even have a drinking fountain, it's like X'd off at this point in time. But yeah, that's I mean, because it's COVID or whatever. But
Yeah.
so when you're in like a relationship, right? So that's the workplace. 6 degrees of separation doesn't necessarily work, especially if you live together, whether you're married or dating or partners, like live-in partners.
If you live together, I don't know one long-term strategy of staying well. And I have a lot of people ask me about it. And it's like, well, if there's a crocodile gnawing your arm, and you come to me and say, how do I not let the crocodile bother me?